Good afternoon, everybody. Big Mike back here with you once again. Welcome back to Big Mike Talks, where today I'm going to be talking about the rest of the week that was in pro wrestling. Well, that's going to include TNA Impact Wrestling and AEW Collision. I am going to try to get through this as fast as possible. I may leave some details out, maybe generalize some promos, but otherwise it's going to be my normal shtick. So, hopefully you strap in and let's do this. So we start off with TNA Impact Wrestling. Start off with a little highlight package, highlighting what's been going on last week. And then we go right into a match, which, really doesn't happen that much in TNA, but, glad to see it. As we have World Heavyweight Champion Mike Santana teaming up with a man making his AMC debut, our X Division Champion, Leon Slater. Which, it's good to see him back. He's figured out his, not immigration status, but, his work visa status. And they are taking on Nick and Ryan, the Nemeth brothers. In which, I think this is the first time they've been teaming in a while, so good to see them back together. Before the bell even rings, out comes Frankie Kazarian. He does interact with Mike Santana a little bit, but then he takes his place sitting on commentary. So, this match was a little basic, but ultimately a lot of fun. Like I said, it's good to see Leon Slater back. He is very underrated. And, definitely, really good back and forth. Here's when the interesting stuff happens. So you see Leon Slater on the top rope. He's ready to do whatever diving attack. Out comes Eric Young, who, if you remember, has the Feast or Fired case for the X Division title shot. He distracts Slater long enough. Santana actually backs him off a little. Slater goes for his 450 Swanton Bomb. Nick Nemeth blocks it with his knees, hits a roll-up for the win for the Nemeth brothers. As we then see Mike Santana walking down the ring, back down the ring, and seeing what is happening far too late. Match itself, like I said, was perfectly fine. Very entertaining. I do like the inclusion of Eric Young in this situation because it does make sense. However, my one nitpick, and this has been something that's been bugging me since it happened. So far, none of the Feast or Fired winners come out with their case. Trey Miguel's cash-in was announced as a pay-per-view match. We didn't even see a promo from him. And then here, Eric Young doesn't have his case on him. So how is he going to cash in? This is why this stipulation is annoying. I expect the case holder to have the case. Otherwise, you can't cash in. That's at least my logic. And look, I get it. This was just a distraction, whatever. TNA, let them hold the cases. Same thing with Eddie Edwards. Since they opened them, they don't have them. Which, if you look at previous Feast or Fired, you at least see them carrying it around. Anyway, that's my rant for this. TNA, hopefully you do better. Because that's one. Anyway, then we see the Righteous. There, you got kind of Vincent kind of laying on a couch vertically. You got Dutch with kind of his leg up on a ledge somewhere. Then the interviewer walks in. I thought this was just going to be a promo, but it's an interview. So then Vincent takes the lead, says, "Strange. How this was meant to be. We believe in brotherhood, but you don't want to get too close. And that's a big misconception. The system says we're trying to hurt the Hardys. A system, you'll be let down later tonight. Please trust us and everything will be groovy." Yeah, I do not trust them one bit. As much as I like the Righteous, they're a great act. I'm not sure what their end game here is. And I'm wondering what it is. So next up, a match we should have had at Sacrifice, or whatever it was before this last pay-per-view. But Dani Luna had some travel issues, so making her AMC debut is Dani Luna taking on former Knockouts champion Li Ying Li, aka the former Xia Li. And this was a dang good matchup. Dani looks like she was working a little rough, but maybe that's just her gimmick now, considering she's no longer a part of Spitfire. Yeah, this match was so much fun, with Dani Luna finishing the match off with a Luna landing. Then we see in the back, we got Tommy Dreamer and Carlos Silva, who is like president of TNA now, and it's first time we've seen him in a couple weeks, so whatever. They're backstage, they're sitting at a table with Alicia Edwards. And Alicia's like, "Look, I've been thinking about signing this contract. I think my services would be well elsewhere. I don't think I'm coming back." So then Moose walks in, unfolds an extra chair, sits like cool guy style, where it's, you know, the back of a folding chair in your front, and you're like this. And he says to her, "I heard you're saying you're done. You're not just the first lady of the system, but you're the first lady of TNA, which, that's interesting. I'll handle the system, but I can tell you, TNA and I need you. And you could just be my manager." Alicia's like, "Sounds good to me." Signs on the dotted line. So it looks like Moose and Alicia Edwards are going to continue their friendship, which is always really good. I'm willing to see where this storyline goes, because it feels a little bit more real than anything else. Although, I will say, Moose calling Alicia the first lady of TNA, yeah, that's definitely not true. We've had Maria Kanellis, who back when Mike was in the company, which I still can't believe that. And then, of course, you got Gail Kim and Awesome Kong. But I get what he's saying to her. Saying how important she is, not just to him, but to the company. Which, nice little sentiment. Got nothing to argue about that. This next match. Ooh, boy, this was interesting. Definitely not a technical masterpiece, but it got the job done. We got AJ Francis taking on Mance Warner. And if you don't know who AJ Francis is, that's the former Top Dollar from WWE when he was in the team with Swerve. And yes, it's that Swerve. Anyway, so as Mance Warner was making his entrance, AJ meets him out on the ramp and just starts beating him the heck down. They make it into the ring, eventually make it into the ring, and the match starts. And I'm going to say this, AJ integrating his slip and fall on that one episode of SmackDown, He turned it into a kind of signature move, calling it Tennessee Whiskey, which is great name. They go back and forth a bit. Mance Warner taking some shortcuts, including eye pokes, eye rakes, whatever. But then Selena De Laurenta. That's not right. Steph DeLander. That's her name. Slides. AJ actually grabs a chair. Steph DeLander grabs it from him, slides it into the ring to give to Mance Warner. Warner uses it, and that causes a disqualification win for AJ Francis. It does seem like this feud is going to go further into the year, which I am definitely okay with. These two definitely have some interesting chemistry, and I'm willing to see, where it goes. Then we get the TNA injury report segment, which I always love it. Makes it feel a little bit more sports-like, which I am always for. Then we get the Mickie James Ash by Elegance face-off, in which Mickie James comes out first. So happy to see her back. I cannot tell you how much I've missed Mickie James. Mickie James is legitimately one of my favorite wrestlers. So she gets on the microphone and says, I wish this was a time where we can just have some fun and talk. But Ash, you've talked a real big game for the last couple weeks. And I drove however many hours here to talk to you. If you got something to say, come out and talk. So at first the concierge goes to make the announcement. Mickie interrupts him saying, No. Nobody's talking to you. I just want to see Ash. Bye-bye. So the concierge goes to leave. Ash comes out. No music. No entrance. Just a microphone. Kind of checking on the concierge, gets about one step from the ring and says, How dare you? These people pay their good money to see my entrance. Does her entrance pose, which is hilarious. Ash then gets in the ring and says, They didn't come all the way here to see you, a washed up legend. She definitely says a little bit more than that, but I was laughing a little bit too hard to catch it. That was a really good line. So Mickie responds, Ash, I thought you'd come out here by yourself. I thought you were my friend. You called me when you were released from the WWE. And I called up Dreamer to give you an opportunity here. So Ash kind of rolls her eyes and says, They were already scouting me. I was the hottest free agent on the market at the time. Mickie smirks, says, You know that's not true. And what's with you having Twitter beef with a former Knockouts champion? I don't know if she's talking about herself or if she's like beefing with Awesome Kong or Gail Kim or something. But that's shooting for the moon right there. Anyway. Then Mickie calls Ash a mark, which, if you don't know that term, that's just another term for a super fan that maybe gets into it a little bit too much, which, definitely me. I'll admit it, I'm a mark. Sue me. Anyway, so crowd starts, You're a mark chants, which that is honestly hilarious. I love that. TNA crowd, you did good. Anyway, Ash, kind of holding her chest, says, I'm not a mark. They come to me because they wanted to be relevant. Mickey then takes a little side eye at Ash, says, "Take a look out there. If it wasn't for them, you wouldn't have the opportunity you do now. But then you turned on them. And I know you're better than that." Ash then says, "I don't care. The only thing I care about is getting the title back I never lost." Mickey then says, "I knew when I left the title, when I retired, it would be in better hands, but you made a mockery of the title and the Knockouts division. And who held it?" Ash then says, "It's none of your business what happened during my reign. I'm better than anyone in here, and I'm certainly better than you." Mickey James responds, "Something you forgot about me, Ash. I'm hardcore country. If I'm not here to talk like a lady, I'm here to wrestle like a lady." She then takes off her jacket, gets right up in Ash's face. Then we see, before any hands be thrown, the rest of the Elegance brand backing Mickey's child into a corner. Which, are we in a hostage situation now? So Mickey attempts to get backstage and save her son. Then the other members of the Elegance brand come out and just attack Mickey, including finishing with Ash hitting a Mick DDT on the stage. So, yeah, looks like this feud is going to continue. I can't tell you how happy I am Mickey James is back. Like I said, she's one of my favorites. I actually met her at a meet and greet for TNA like years ago. And that always stuck with me. So, Mickey, glad to see you're back. I don't know if she's wrestling or not, but I'd like to see her wrestle one more time. So then we go to a different part of backstage, even though it looks like the same room Mickey James' kid was in. And we see Harley Hudson checking up on Mila Moore, who was down on the ground. It looks like she was attacked. Santino walks in, says, "Is she okay? What happened?" And Harley's trying to get help. That is when the former Sonya Deville walks in, says, "What's going on? Everything... You need to come with me, Santino." So she and Santino exit the room. They're in the hallway a little bit, with Rhea saying, "Lately, Chaos has been doing nothing but follow you." Oop. "Everything going wrong has something to do with you. And your daughter with the Knockouts title now has a big target on her back. You better get it together soon." She walks off, and we just kind of see Santino sigh. Now, normally I really wouldn't care about the authority figures in wrestling, but I feel like they are doing a really good job telling a story between these two. Like, obviously, Santino's all about letting the competitors get done what they need to, but Rhea's more about control, being an iron fist, and controlling people. And it's a very interesting dynamic when they interact. And then this next match, very interesting. We got Tasha Steele of Order 4 taking on Jada Stone, sorry. And before the bell starts, Steel attacks Stone, which that's honestly pretty funny. Not the attack itself, but Steel attacking Stone. It's got to be a metaphor for something. I don't know. Anyway, definitely a decent little back and forth. There was a time where it looked like Steel was just dominating, but Stone eventually got her act together. Although a bit too late. After a superplex, Tasha Steele attempts a cutter, but that gets blocked into a roll-up and a very interesting win for Jada Stone. At that point, Jada was on the outside of the ring. She gets surrounded by the Great Hands, puts her back in the ring where Tasha Steele hits a cutter, and they all just start to beat down on Jada Stone. So, we'll see if Stone gets some help in the near future. But, yeah, that was definitely an interesting matchup. So, next up, we got an in-ring interview with Steve Maclin, who, if you remember, got the fired case of Feast or Fired. So, technically, he's not supposed to be here, although this is part of the storyline, which I am definitely for. So, Steve Maclin basically says, this whole situation isn't about Mike Santana. It's about me. I opened the case with the pink slip. And after that, people have come to me telling me how much I mean to TNA. That day got me thinking, who is the most selfish person in the company? And telling me how selfless I am. It's who I am. Mike and I had a brotherhood, and he broke that long ago. You want to hold me accountable? I lost 6-man tags because Mike wasn't there. He should be accountable for my actions or real talk. I come out here and attempt to spill my guts week after week, and yet I don't say a word. I just put my boots on and move forward. This is why I'm selfless. And the interviewer, Tom Hannafin, I forget what he says, but it just clicks something in Steve Maclin, saying, you sound just like all of them in the back. We are supposed to be good friends. You're supposed to be standing at my side. And the only reason you're here is because I got you this job. Then Tom stays silent, stands there holding the microphone, and then Maclin just attacks Tom in the back with the microphone. This brings out Mike Santana, in which, at that point, Maclin bails to the outside. And then Maclin, turning to the other ring announcer, goes and pushes him over before he leaves. So, yeah, this storyline is definitely very interesting. It's very involved, too. I kind of like the dynamic we got going on between non-roster guy Steve Maclin and Mike Santana. So it's kind of a two sides of the same coin situation, if you know what I mean. Then we get a little rundown of the card for next week, in which that looks really, really fun. Then we see Gia Miller, who is usually the interviewer backstage, replaces Tom at commentary, so he's selling the attack by Maclin. Then we go into our main event, which is an 8-man tag team match playa, as we got the full force of the system. So that's Bear Bronson, Brian Myers, Cedric Alexander, and Eddie Edwards, taking on the Righteous, Vincent and Dutch, and their tag team partner, the TNA Tag Team Champions, Matt and Jeff Hardy. And this, I'm going to say this, it did start off a little slowly, but eventually it did pick up. A lot of really good back and forth. For a while, Eddie Edwards was just dominating dudes, including a big Blue Thunder bomb on Vincent. He goes for... Actually, it was on Jeff Hardy. Eddie was about to hit the Boston Knee Party on Jeff. Vincent pushes him out of the way at the last minute, eats the finisher for the win for the System. Post-match, the System attacks the Hardys and the Righteous. And that's when Moose attempts to make the save, but the numbers are too much. This brings out Alicia Edwards, who puts herself between a downed Moose and the rest of the System. So, yeah, definitely some interesting relationships forming between not just the System and Moose, but also kind of the Righteous and the Hardy Boys. It's definitely interesting to see where they're going, and I'm more than excited to tune in next week. And honestly, I'm going to say this. If you haven't given TNA a try in a while, I say give them a go. What will it hurt? So, overall, this episode of TNA was definitely a step above last week. Last week was kind of down for me. But, yeah, this week, up and up. You got a couple of really good returns to action from Leon Slater and Danny Luna. You got some really interesting matchups. And then the dynamics of certain stars are really interesting. So, we'll see how this all plays out moving forward. But again, I very much enjoyed TNA Impact this week. So that leaves us with our final show of the week, and that's AEW Collision. Now, I did miss a little bit in the middle because I was walking my dogs, but I did get most of it. Although, really, I only missed, the middle part of the opening matchup. So, start off Collision with an MJF promo saying, I want to make something very, very clear. This show does not start until the Revolution match gets fixed. I'm the best wrestler on the planet. Tony Khan, get out here and let's change this match. So that brings out not Tony Khan, but Kevin Knight. And if you know, he is 1/3 of the Trios champions with MJF's main challenger for Revolution. So Knight gets in the ring, says, Max, it's nice to see you. I wanted to get something done here, and I've been getting it done. I stopped you from changing the stipulation along with Bayley and Brodito. I stopped to rectify this situation. I've come out here and I'm tired of seeing the same routine because I dress better than you, I got more swag than you, and I'm starting to think that Jet is more handsome than you. Which, that's... he continues, back to the matter at hand. The Jet may even be a better world champion than you. MJF retorts with a big smirk on his face saying, okay, listen to me, you arrogant child. Which, great line, by the way. He continues, tell me how You come out here telling me how to do my job. You call yourself a jet? Well, you better get on a jet and jet on to El Paso, because you got an AEW World Title match next week for the Triple B. And before MJF leaves, he says it's going to be a tough lesson. Actually, this is Kevin Knight. I'm not the future. No, this is MJF. You're not the future or the now. When I'm done with you, you'll be history. So we got an AEW World Title match coming up between, honestly, some very interesting characters with MJF and Kevin Knight. We then get a very fun hype video of Tommaso Ciampa versus Jay Lethal, in which this is their first time meeting in an AEW ring. They have definitely met before in Ring of Honor. And I mean proper Ring of Honor, not Ring of Honor as we see it now. So our first matchup of the evening after that very strange opening promo, as we got the Death Riders, so it's Claudio Castagnoli, Wheeler Yuta, Daniel Garcia, and the Bastard Pack taking on the Don Callis family, in which it's Josh Alexander, Lance Archer, Trent Beretta, and Rocky Romero, aka Roppongi Vice. And early on, Don Callis family pretty much dominated, with the Death Riders getting a move in here and there. After a while, the Death Riders do get more of an advantage. Near the end of the match, Rocky Romero hits a aided sliced bread after springing off of Trent. Goes for a pin, only gets a 2. Goes for a more traditional sliced bread in the corner. That gets blocked. Yuta with a big old Busaiku knee to pick up the win for the Death Riders. And as the Death Riders are celebrating, Takeshita's music hits. And I thought, another stand down for Moxley. He comes out with a microphone in his hand. And I thought, we're going to finally hear him talk after a while. He gets in the ring, has a big old stare down with Moxley, and then they just throw hands. Like, there isn't any audio prompt. Takeshita didn't invoke Moxley's family. They just dropped their dukes and they just fought. Death Riders and Callis family do separate them, while also kind of brawling themselves, which is like, it's a little awkward to see, but I do see the vision coming forward. And it's definitely going to be interesting. So, take a little break, come back to Tommaso Ciampa taking on Jay Lethal. And it has been a way too long since I've seen Jay Lethal on AEW TV. Because, honestly, Jay Lethal is so underrated, it's not even funny. They had a really good back and forth. Near the end, Lethal attempts a lethal injection. That gets blocked almost immediately into a cutter from Tommaso Ciampa. Lethal again attempts the lethal injection. That gets blocked. Ciampa with the dropkick into the fairy tale ending to pick up the win. Actually, no. Only gets a 2 count. At that point, we see Lee Johnson, in which Jay Lethal is actually managing the swirl, which is a very interesting combination. That distracts Ciampa enough for Lethal to go for a roll-up, only get a 2. Ciampa with a drop kick. Rising knee strike in the middle of the ring. Just a big bunch of knees in the corner to pick up the win for Tommaso Ciampa. Then we kind of get these weird hype videos in a row. We got the Inspiration announcing they're going to be at Dynamite this week, taking on the Brawling Birds, which, I'm going to say this, the Inspiration, or as you know them by, the Iconics, are definitely an interesting combination to have in AEW. While I don't really think they fit that well, I am willing to give them a chance, considering AEW does need a little bit more depth in the women's tag division. Then we get a nice all-in hype video, which I'm definitely excited for that one. They're going back to Wembley, ready to go. Then we get this weird, but also kind of interesting Clark Connors hype video, where it's like, the beginning, it's like an old school teaser for a movie. And it's like Western style. It was honestly pretty cool. Next up, we got the Brawling Birds. So that's Jamie Hayter and Alex Windsor. And AEW, I'm going to tell you this right now. Stop just calling them the Brawling Birds. The Brawling Birds works so much better, as they take on Gypsy Mac and Tyler Crewman? That's what I have written here. I didn't really catch their name. Yeah, this was definitely a Brawling Birds squash match. Their opponents did get some stuff in, but eventually you have the two birds with one stone finish, which I love that name, with your winners with the Brawling Birds. Then we get a hype video for an upcoming matchup on Collision, and apparently it's a 4-way money match. That's the best way I can do it. So we have the Swirl, so that's Blake Christian and Lee Johnson, Private Party, who it has been way too long since we've seen them on TV, the Outrunners, Truth Magnum and Turbo Floyd. And coming back from injury, we got Dralistico teaming with Roosh of LFI. So we're going to see where that goes. That match sounds awesome. I am inject that into my veins right now, please. So next up, we got this weird little tag match, as we have the team of Proto Okada. So that's Kyle Fletcher and Kazuchika Okada teaming to take on Top Flight. And honestly, this was a very competitive match. The kind of dueling of styles was really fun to watch, with Top Flight doing more of the high-flying stuff and Proto Okada doing more technical ground and pound stuff. Then we get some interesting stuff at the end. Okada hits the Rainmaker. Instead of going for the pin, he takes in Fletcher. Gets in. It's his corner kick on Darius. Lifts up Dante. Hits the Brainbuster to pick up the win for his team. At that point, Kyle Fletcher has a microphone and says, Proto Okada are the greatest champions in the company in AEW history. And now that we're together as Proto Okada, we are unstoppable. And whoever wants to stop us, before he can get another word in edgewise, out come Jet Speed, who say, you guys say you're unstoppable. During the C2, which is the Continental Classic, we both have a win over you. and you say you're the greatest champions in AEW history. The math isn't mathing. So Okada picks up the microphone and says, "You haven't beaten Broto Kata." Brings down the microphone, picks it back up fast. Bitch. I find that funny for all kinds of reasons. So then Mike Bailey picks up the microphone and says, "Oh, that's nice, doing the bruh thing to Kyle. That's rich, Okada." And while I honestly would love to see us two teams have a match, but Hangman, after I beat MJF, I would love for you to be first defense. Fletcher then says, "I beat you for the TNT title. You've defended your trios titles. So let's go." It was definitely a little awkward promo by the end, but overall the challenge is set. I don't think they're going to do this at Revolution. I think they're going to do this on Dynamite, which I'm definitely all for. Then we get a little hype video from Darby Allin and Orange Cassidy versus Clark Connors and Gabe Kidd, showing the highlights of this match, and with pretty much Clark Connors and Gabe Kidd saying, "Yeah, we're not done with you." So we'll see what happens there. Next up, very interesting little matchup as we got Timeless Toni Storm taking on Zeta Steel. So Steel for a while now has been teaming with Top Flight, has been being their manager, but it turns out she is on her own again. And this match was definitely a bit more competitive than I was realizing. Definitely really good back and forth. But in the end, we see the Hip Attack, the Storm Zero, for your win from Timeless Toni Storm. At that point, Marina Shafir comes out. They have a big brawl. Tony counters with the Thez Press. This brings in Wheeler Yuta. Tony kind of catches him and finally takes off the wool cap, finally revealing Wheeler Yuta's bald head. In which, yeah, I'm with you, Wheeler. Yuta then runs off as Toni Storm stands strong. Then we get a little Hook on the outside promo saying, "We here in the Ops are recovering and everyone wants to join." Runs into an extra in which I had no idea who this guy was. If this guy was someone on the roster, please someone tell me, because I did not recognize it. And then he says to the guy, "Oh, of course you do. Maybe next time." So he walks off and runs into someone very interesting. Anthony Bowens, formerly of The Acclaimed. Don't know why I did that. So Bowens says to Hook, "Look, I've had your back since we got started together. And I thought it would be a good idea for me to join the Ops." So Hook responds, "We are definitely friends. And you've really impressed me over the weeks. But this is business. So I need to evaluate it. So Bowens, do you have the killer instinct? Let me think on it." So Hook walks off. Bowens kind of goes off on his own. And so, yeah, it looks like Hook's serious about recruiting for the Ops. I'm honestly wondering what they're going to look like in the near future. Especially with Hook at the helm. Next matchup, a very, very fun tag team match, as we got the Sisters of Sin. That's Julia Hart and Sky Blue taking on Thunder Rosa Yeah. And Chris Statlander. And this match pretty much had every trope in the book, from interferences to way too many near falls to count. But after a while, Chris Statlander hits the Saturday Night Fever, tags in Rosa, who hits the Thunder Fire Driver to pick up the win for her team. Post-match, we finally hear from Thekla. She's up in the crowd and says, "If there's one thing I can't stand, it's two dumb bitches." Which, tell us how you really feel, Thekla. And says to Thunder Rosa, "You ready to get toxic on Wednesday?" "Chris, tell her how I made you bleed. How I took this title from you." "Chris, it's time for you to just retire already. Give it up and pass. Give it up, because the past of the women's division, you're the past of the women's division, because it now belongs to me." Definitely an interesting promo. I will admit I do have some hard time understanding Thekla a little bit, because I do not speak much Spanish. So, yeah, I'm just hoping to understand her a little bit more, so I can get more of her promos. So now, last but not least, a very interesting matchup, and apparently their first ever one-on-one match. They faced each other in multi-man matches before, never one-on-one, but here in AEW, we're getting it. We got Andrade El Idolo taking on Tomohiro Ishii. And this was definitely an interesting matchup. You clearly had Ishii trying to slow things down, but Andrade quickening the pace every time he does. Andrade attempts the DM. That gets blocked by Ishii. Attempts the brainbuster. That gets blocked. Andrade with his back elbow hits the DM for the win. And of course he does the thing with the plant in the crowd, where he goes over, takes a picture with them, and signs an autograph. In which, I'm going to say this right now, the more I've seen this, the more I find it creepy, but not because of what you think. So, in my time of being a wrestling fan, I've been told time and time again, do not touch the wrestlers. And now this woman had her hands all over Andrade, which, I'm going to say this, makes me a little bit uncomfortable. Like, obviously she's part of the act. She's put there by the promotion. But it still makes me uncomfortable and kind of fear for Andrade's safety. Now, I'm not saying it to be sexist or whatever, but you never know what could happen. Like, maybe she pulls out bear mace or something. I know it's a little ridiculous, but I'm going to say this. Tony Khan, let's tone down the groupie a little bit. I'm not saying the person can't be excited and have pictures. Let's not have her touch the wrestlers. Otherwise, that gives real fans bad ideas. So, that's all I'm saying. Andrade picks out the win. Bandito comes out. And then immediately Andrade just removes his tights, in which he has wrestling like shorts on, which that's a little odd reaction to Bandito, but whatever. So Bandito attempts to shake Andrade's hand because they got a match at Revolution, in which, yes please, Andrade is a little taken aback, doesn't shake his hand. but acknowledges Bandito. So, yeah, that match is going to be so good. I cannot wait for that one. And, yeah, that was AEW Collision. I'm going to say this. AEW has been doing a really, really good job of making Collision feel a bit more important and a bit more must-see. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Do you really need to see Collision to understand what's going on? No, but also kind of yes. If that makes any sense. Like, Collision usually only has, like, maybe 30 or 40% of AEW's stories. But this was definitely jam-packed full of stories and moments, and I'm going to say this. If you've fallen off with Collision, I'm going to say give it a shot, because it is way more entertaining than people give it credit for. So, yeah, that will do it for me. I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. Please like the video, share this content around, and let me know in the comments, what was your favorite match or moment from this week in wrestling? Because there was a lot of them. You could also include the WWE if you really want to. But, yeah, overall, it was a pretty entertaining week of wrestling. Cannot wait to see what happens next week. And until that time, I hope you all have a good day. And happy wrestling, everybody. Peace.